category. You've got a little bit more horsepower to play with. The teams up the tempo a little bit in terms of the professionalism, and the races are longer, 20 minutes earlier, half an hour for these guys. So obviously they're going to have to work a lot harder behind the wheel. They call this the coming of age championship within the Caterham paddock. So let's head over and go and talk to the man starting from pole position. Stephen Lyle has obviously got an incredible amount of work to do in this race, but fortunately the weather seems to be on his side this time, because now that cheeky pesky rain seems to have finally started to dissipate. So let's see if we can grab a word with Stephen Lyle from pole position on the grid. Stephen, the perfect place to be starting off the weekend from, but a lot of opportunities to have a great scrap out there with your opponents.
Yeah, there's only one way from here though, isn't there? But yeah, we've just got to maintain it. Just try and keep up the pace, and if we can defend, then we can defend. If not, then hang on to whoever goes past.
Well, one thing you don't have to panic about now to a certain degree is the weather, because obviously it's now decided to make its mind up.
Yeah, it's taking the mickey out of us. We needed it wet. We were quick in the wet, we wanted it to rain, and it's the only time of the day it's dried up, but we'll be all right.
Well, one of the things I've noticed about this paddock, particularly in 270R, is the camaraderie, the banter between you all. You've got a real respect for each other out there.
Yeah, I mean, we've come from years of karting where nobody on the grid even speaks to each other. Everybody here gets on well. Yeah, it's good.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully it's going to be as entertaining as it is cheerful. Good stuff.
Thank you.
It's really good stuff from this particular category. Let's have a quick word with Blair Mcconaughey. He's going to be sharing the front row of the grid. Blair, this is a very competitive field, one of the most exciting and certainly the closest in terms of the Caterham field out there. How do you gain an advantage on that man alongside you?
By hoping it doesn't rain. I think we've worked out through qualifying that Stephen's just, I guess all his karting experience has paid dividends. He's really, really good in the wet. So there was a lot of talk in the paddock. Is it going to, 5 or 6 different apps on your phone trying to work out where the rain's coming from? Will it arrive in time? Will it not? Personally, I'm quite glad it's dry. So hopefully we can work together for a bit to get away from the pack and then see how it finishes after that.
That's very interesting. He wants it to rain. You don't want it to rain. Do you know any decent wet weather haikus?
It doesn't matter what you wish for, the opposite will happen.
Fantastic. Good luck with it.
Cheers.
There's some amazing competitors in this field, and as the two drivers have just mentioned, there is such an incredible waft of competitiveness amongst this grid. You've got Dan Clayfan there in 3rd position on the grid, Fraser Jones P4. We've just had the whistle go, so I have a feeling the drivers are going to head out onto the circuit any moment now. Indeed they do. They go off into their positions. This is the pressure moment now for the drivers, when they really start to work their magic, getting themselves ready out on the circuit. In this mindset, obviously the drivers are trying to just get themselves dialed in, get that focus ready. It is definitely going to be a fever pitch race, and for half an hour, Scott, you're in the box seat.
Certainly am, as I like to think so, Jake. But yes, thank you very much. Good to hear from some of our front runners in the 270R Championship, and we are getting set then. 3rd Caterham race of the day. Just once again, if you had just come back from our break, welcome back to our viewers on the Caterham Cars stream. Good to have you back with us for our 3rd Caterham race of the weekend. It is, for as Jake mentioned, the Coming of Age Championship, as many call it, the Motorhole Caterham 7 270R Championship. So this is the middle step in the 5-step Caterham Motorsport ladder. You start, of course, in Academy, then Road Sport, then here in 270R, and 310R. You upgrade the car through each of those 4 stages, so the next 3 stages after Academy, and then for the 7 Championship UK, you then pick up a dedicated chassis with a new engine, different tyres, different gearbox, different suspension. It's a whole new race car, but you keep this particular car for your first 4 seasons of racing with Caterham Motorsport. That's what makes it one of the most cost-effective and excellent ways to go racing as an overall package. So, quickly run you through the grid then. Stephen Lyle, as you mentioned, starts on pole position. Points leader, Blair Mcconaughey starts alongside him on the front row of the grid. Then it's Dan Clayfan and Fraser Jones, followed by Duncan Cook and Ryan Errol on the 3rd row of the grid. And then Carl Jones and Harry Eyre, the 2 main contenders to try and challenge Blair Mcconaughey, back on the 4th row of the grid. That wet weather conditions really did mix things up in qualifying, didn't it? Then it's Paul Farrell and Peter Wales rounding out the top 10 from John Cox and Darrell Cresswell. William Brunt and Tim Steele come next from Alan Curtis and Demetrius Melas. Then we've got the 61 of McLean, who appears to be a new driver in the mix. I've only got a surname of McLean, so welcome to him on the grid this weekend. He starts alongside the 99 of Michael Curley. Rounding out the top 20, back in 19th place is Wes Payne. I expect him to be much higher, but he's someone who is quite one to watch out for. But he had some issues by retiring from the first race at Silverstone, so he's got some points to try and make up. And he's back down in 9th in the points at the moment on drop scores, so quite a bit of work to do, particularly here this afternoon from 19th on the grid. Alongside him on row 10 is Paul Herndon, then it's Stephen Hutchinson and Roger Gaunt on the 11th row of the grid. There's Oliver Smith, David Morgan and Richard Hoare to round out our 25-car grid for this weekend. So, in the championship standings, we have got a set of scores which include drop scores, and everyone's sorted by drop scores. So you drop your worst 2 results in the 270R Championship, and the leader is Blair Mcconaughey, the car that starts on the right, the white car with the black nose. He is the championship leader. He's having the year of his life so far, because for the past 2 seasons, a pesky rival called Tom Willis has been able to snatch the title from him on both occasions, both first in the Academy and then in the Road Sport Championship. So with 270Rs, he now, with Tom Willis only doing sporadic rounds as an invitation and guest driver, and who's therefore invisible to score points, means that even if Tom Willis wins a race and beats Blair, Blair still gets the maximum score of points for a win that you would do if you finished ahead of him on the road anyway. So Blair Mcconaughey then leads the championship by, on drop scores, 8 points from Harry Eyre, who's of course back on that 4th row of the grid alongside Carl Jones, who is just behind Harry in the points. He's a further 7 back on 81 on drop scores, and he's actually level with Rob Keogh. So Rob, who is 4th of the championship, is not here unfortunately. So Rob, who switched to Caterham's across from Ginettas, he took a year out from in 2020 due to for obvious reasons. Something called C, which we like to prefer not to mention, of course, from the effect of the world. Since March last year. So 4th for Rob Keogh in the points, but he's not here. Stuart Bell, I believe, is also not here this weekend, so he's another one of the top 5 who will drop down. I think we don't have Chris Ephraimidis either, so he's back in 6th, but Fraser Jones we do have, and Fraser is back a little further back. Well, here's the confirmation of the grid anyway on the screen. So Stephen Lyle and Blair Mcconaughey on that front row, and Stephen Lyle was on pole, but look at that, almost a second compared to Blair Mcconaughey. It's then Dan Clayfan and Fraser Jones on the 2nd row of the grid. Duncan Cook and Ryan Errol will come next on row number 3. Then the 2 main championship contenders to challenge Blair back on row 4, Carl Jones and Harry Eyre. Watch for them, they definitely won't stay there back in 7th and 8th places. 9th and 10th for Paul Farrell and Peter Wells. Some drivers a little bit out of position thanks to those weather conditions. Some drivers preferring wet compared to dry. 6th row for John Cox, he'll start alongside Darryl Cresswell, another driver who is quite prominent on his day. Back to row 7, where of course we've got William Brunt and Tim Steele, who will be looking to try and make their runs through. William Brunt has been quite a front runner in the previous times, particularly when he's been racing before in Road Sport and I think Caterham previously. Alan Curtis, Demetrius Malas, who another driver who shouldn't be that far down, but again, the weather didn't really play favours with him. They've got McLean in 17th place, and then Michael Curley rounding out the top 18 drivers. The top 20 completed by Wes Payne, who again is another driver who, if he's got enough pace in the dry, definitely I don't think will stay there from the 10th row of the grid with Paul Herndon alongside him. Stephen Hutchinson and Roger Gaunt come next on row 11. And then the last few cars on the grid, as we mentioned, are Oliver Smith, David Morgan, and then Richard Hoare in car number 48, who will round out our 25-car grid as they set off in the bright, beautiful August summer sunshine here at Brands Hatch. What stormy weather. It's absolutely glorious here this afternoon as the cars make their way. There's the back of the 25-car grid. As you can see, the weather is absolutely beautiful here at Brands Hatch. We had those weather storms earlier on this morning in qualifying, which affected things, particularly with some heavy rain showers that came very briefly and disappeared. But thankfully, it's a bone-dry track. It's about 15 degrees out there, so it's a nice, comfortable temperature, nice breeze. I'd say it's perfect conditions for weather for motorsport this afternoon. So the cars weave this way and that in order to get some heat into their tyres. I don't think we haven't had them doing second green flag laps, although whether 1 or 2 of them will, because the conditions might have changed substantially between when they did their qualifying and then their first race. But I suspect by the fact that they are a bit slower on the pit strip and weaving side to side and warming up the brakes, I suspect we won't get that. There's someone enjoying the brighter skies at some overflying aeroplanes, it seems. It's Spitfire being told by the director. Thank you for that. So there's a Spitfire flying overhead. So I'm sure these guys will be like land-born Spitfires here with these guys as they come through onto the grid. So just quick colour check then. It is on pole position. It's Alistair Lyle who has the kind of sort of grey and orange car on the inside of the front row of the grid. The white car with the black nose, that's Blair Mcconaughey. Dan Clayfan's car is the black and red car on the second row of the grid. The black and white car on the outside is Fraser Jones. Duncan Cook's car is the predominantly, I think, blue car on the left side of the third row of the grid. The green car on the third row is Ryan Errol in car number 33. So we're getting set then, the last couple of cars in position. There goes the green flag at the back of the field. And we are all set for this first Caterham 7 270R race, sponsored by Motul. All set here at Brands Hatch with Lyle and McConaughey on the front row of the grid. Can the champion either extend his lead? Will the likes of Carl Jones and Harry Ayre make it for the fourth row of the grid? Well, they've made up a good start already. They've managed to get past Duncan Cook from the third row, but it's a great start from the outside of the front row already for Blair Mcconaughey as they head into Paddock Hill Bend. It was also a decent start for Ryan Errol, who has gone up from 6th, he's into 5th position already, darting his way through the pack. Now they make their way up towards Druids for the first time. As we mentioned, it's a half an hour race, which means if we do get into some frantic battles, they're going to have to keep it up for half an hour. So 30 minutes is quite a long time in a Caterham race, but time flies definitely when you're having fun, particularly in a pack as big and competitive as this. So out of Graham Hill Bend they go. It's McConaughey who leads the way. And up into, I think, second place has gone Fraser Jones. And then down to third, but trying to get the position back is Stephen Lyle, forcing his way up the inside at Surtees, and he's got through. He's forced Jones off line a little bit. There's Clayfan under attack from Ryan Errol. And then trying to make their way through now are both Carl Jones and Harry Ayre. Harry Ayre, I think, is in the dark British Racing green Caterham, whereas Carl Jones is in the predominantly, I think, black Caterham with the green striping on it. So watch for those two to come back through the field. And the outside there looks the Dan Clayfan on the number 14 of Fraser Jones. He's now under threat from Ryan Errol. He looks up the inside, and look, there is Carl Jones. You can see him trying to make it 3 abreast, fourth position. And Carl Jones goes round the outside of Fraser Jones. I love Fraser. Cheers for that, Fraser. Up the inside he goes. He's going for it again. Ooh, that was very close. The thing with Caterham racing is to get some of these drivers that will have raced for several seasons. They can race that hard and fast, and they don't make contact. What's also happened, you can see, change for lead, because Alistair Lyle just said to Blair, you took the lead from me, I'll take it back if you don't mind, thank you, from pole position. So Lyle is back into the lead then, past McConaughey, as they come out of Clark Curve, back onto the pit straight to end the second lap of racing. Down the pit straight they go then. So it is Lyle that leads, McConaughey in second place, it's Clayfan third. It's the Joneses, Carl and Fraser in fourth and fifth. Harry Ayre's up to 6th, Darrell Cresswell's up to 7th. It's then 8th for the number 13 Carl Farrell is 9th, and it's Peter Wells in 10th position. So it is Cook in 9th position, and then Farrell and Wells down to 10th and 11th. Pack heads its way out through Druids for the third time. The first proper flying lap, the fastest lap of the race, went to, no surprise, Alistair Lyle, 55.149. There's 38 and 53. That is Wes Payne, who's now ahead of Jeff Steele. So there's a change on between those two drivers. That's a switch of position. So another spot for Wes. I did say he's another driver who started deep in the field, wouldn't stay there. So lots of battling going on. 61 further back there is, if I confirm his number on the timing screen, 61 is our driver that's simply just called McLean on the timing screen, but I haven't got a first name for him. So McLean is one of our late sort of new entrants to the championship, making his debut here this weekend. So it's always nice to see new drivers tackling Caterham. It's not just drivers who have done the academy before or come up for the ranks. You get some drivers like Rob Keogh, for example, who's sadly not here, who does jump into any stage of the Caterham, or apart from the academy, any stage above academy to give racing a go. And usually do get some drivers slotting in from 270s, 310s, and of course the 7 Championship UK, and they do tend to come up and give Caterham a try after the first 2 championships have been completed. So Blair Mcconaughey then is being slightly backed into Dan Clayfan here, with Ryan Errol and then Carl Jones also closing in. So we've got a top 5 breakaway here. Lyle leads it. Blair Mcconaughey quite fancies leading at this point. He's looking to the outside of Stephen as they come back down towards the top end of Paddock Hill Bend, side by side across the line. That was between, who was that between side by side? That was the 31 of Cox and I think Steele as well, so that was pretty close between them. It was actually 40 and 30, sorry, it's Farrell and Cook who were separated across the line by 11 thousandths of a second. Now up into position, looks like up to 4th place has gone Carl Jones. He's got past Dan Clayfan. So his next target will be Ryan Errol, who has also got past Dan. So Dan's lost 2 positions since he came across the start-finish line just a few moments ago. I suspect it must have been set up by the run through Paddock Hill Bend. There goes Lyle, heading that pack. The second pack is headed up now by Harry Ayre. He's in the Caterham which has got the Team Lotus colours. That's the British Racing green Caterham with the yellow stripe and yellow nose on the front. Car 55. And they make their way down the pit straight again. Fraser Jones back to 7th now. Darrell Cresswell 8th. Duncan Cook 9th. Paul Farrell rounding out that top 10. Stephen Lyle, who incredibly, you can see, has a novice cross on the back, so he's certainly not driving like he's a novice, he's driving like he's been doing it for years. And impressive stuff from Stephen. Back towards Druids. Still McConaughey just holding on for the time being. There's plenty of time to go, so he's got enough time just to keep on applying that pressure and try and set Stephen up for a move at some point. It's all about for a driver, how long can you keep up with just resisting that pressure from start to finish? If you get one driver that's all over you from the very outset, the great drivers can just resist it and hold on. There's a move in the midfield there as someone tried to make a move just ahead of Wes Payne. That must have been, I think, Paul Farrell and Peter Wells, I think. Also in there is Wes Payne in there too. Battling also, I think Darryl Cresswell's not too far away either. So lots going on towards the bottom of the top 10 and just outside it. Leaders come back across the line. Carl Jones sets the new fastest lap of the race, 54.860. And if he hadn't set that, it would have gone to Dan Clayfans. He's just done a 54.9. So those two are the fastest men on the track at the moment. So Carl Jones is looking to try and get himself into the lead too. He's getting stuck in here. And you can see there that Paul Farrell's got past Dan Clayfans. So Ryan Farrell's got past Dan Clayfans. Sorry, Ryan Farrell. It's Ryan Errol. I'll get my name right eventually. Ryan Errol is up into he's in 4th position. He's got back past again. And Dan Clayfan's been shuffled down to 5th. So a bit of a change. McConaughey going on the attack into Surtees. And Harry Ayre has broken away from that second group. He's now pulling away from them and starting to try and latch onto the back of this quintet to make it a 6-pack at the front of the field. They come out of Clark Curve. Stephen Lyle under threat from Blair. I really feel it's his year as he looks to the outside line. Look at the momentum he carries all the way to Paddock Hill Bend. He gets under brakes, but Lyle won't give it up easy. And now McConaughey looks for that undercut, looks for the switch back on the exit, gets the pull up the hill towards Druids. He's fully alongside, which means that Lyle has to give him the room. He will try and survive round the outside as Carl Jones watches on, waiting for any fireworks between them. They are still just about side by side. Lyle will go back up the inside to try and defend, but McConaughey sees it coming. But even though he does see it coming, he does get a slightly better exit, and again they're going to go side by side down the back straight. Down Cooper Straight, into Surtees. And again, watch that green and yellow machine of Harry Ayre in 6th position, right at the back of shot. The more that these 5 cars continue to battle amongst each other and hold each other up, the quicker Harry Ayre will get onto the tail of them. And if he's got the pace, will start to pick them off one by one if he can get himself through. New fastest lap of the race, I should mention, has gone to Wes Payne. He's down in 9th position, but he's just put in a 54.859. He's up to 7th place now, 1 position behind that man, Harry Ayre, in car 55. So watch for Wes Payne if he can start to close in. He's got a gap of how far behind is he at the moment? He's a couple of spots back. We'll have to wait and see where he is. So I think we've got a car whose transponder is not properly working, because it's showing that Harry Ayre's in 5th position, but that's not quite right. I think it's Ryan Errol's who's not working properly. So Ryan's definitely there in what's now 5th position. It's showing on my timing screen as having Harry Ayre in 5th, but that's not right, because you can see the green and black car, that is Ryan Errol, and he is in 5th position. So yes, he's been just back in by the timekeeper, so he's back into P5. But our leaders make their way down the pit straight. They hug that inside line of the pit wall right next to the grass. And just behind, you can see here, that is Wes Payne. He's just got past Nick Cresswell. So Darryl Cresswell. I'll get my names right eventually one day. Darryl Cresswell up into 7th place back again. Looks like Darryl tried to get back past on that same lap and did so momentarily, but now that Wes has got put through again, the kind of pearlescent coloured Caterham, car number 38. It's not just one colour, it's several. It looks at one light like it's blue, but one light looks like it's sort of shiny pink. Oops, oh, that's Harry Ayre off the road. Harry Ayre has the spin on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. He must have gone too wide, or he's tried to get past somebody right on the tail. Meanwhile, there was a battle on. Now then, what's happened here? It was just away from our cameras. We've seen that Carl Jones is into the lead now. Stephen Lyle's now 2nd, and Blair Mcconaughey is now 3rd. And as they come through the league, this is a bit further back. This is car 40 that's having a shot. That's Paul Farrell. He's at the head of this next group of cars, which I think includes Peter Wales, Jeff Steele, and William Brunt. So all sorts going on in front here. That's Wes Payne from Darryl Cresswell. And then Fraser Jones, who's back in 7th place. So it's all changed around at the front, though. Carl Jones now leads. Stephen Lyle's now 2nd. And Blair McConaughey's now 3rd. Dan Clayfan 4th. And Wes Payne 5th. And Harry Ayre, as we mentioned, has dropped down the order. He's outside, I think, even the top 20. Where's he gone? He's all the way down to He's come through, but he's in absolute last, 24th position. So whatever happened off camera, sadly, has put him right out of contention after such a strong drive through to just about get onto the back end of that leading 5 cars in front of him. There's William Brunt in the golf-coloured blue and orange car, just trying to get around Jeff Steele in the silver and yellow machine. William, who was a front runner in his academy days, is certainly trying to get himself back on the pace here, just on the fringes of the top 10. He's going to try and line him up for a pass here. He's going to try and get himself into that top 10's position. Jeff Steele has it, but William Brunt wants it. He's going to look to the outside. Again, just put himself back on that ideal racing line. He wants that undercut as he comes through. Meanwhile, change from a lead. Up the inside goes Carl Jones. Squeezes Stephen Lyle wide. And here comes Blair Mcconaughey trying to get back past him for second position. Dan Clayfan having a great race in 4th, keeping with the leading group. But look at the way Stephen Lyle, he almost just nudged the back of Carl Jones's car. A little kiss on the back of the rear end of Carl Jones's car. Sweeps to the inside in towards Surtees. And he's, I think, back through again. There's a piece of bodywork that's come off. One of the wings has come off somebody. And can't quite catch who it was, but someone's car's just a tiny bit lighter. So now Stephen Lyle makes his way onto the pit straight, now under threat from Carl Jones again. It's still Lyle, Jones, McConaughey, Clayfan, and they're side by side again. The outside move, underbrake, and they come level as they come towards the turn apex, and Lyle really parked his car in the middle of the road and forced Carl Jones to have to back out of any potential move round the outside. Stephen Lyle, he might have a rookie cross the back, but he's driving very smart indeed to try and hold off some very experienced drivers who've been racing in this championship for the last 2 seasons. Brilliant stuff from Stephen at the moment. Say, definitely not, his racecraft at the moment definitely doesn't befit his novice status. He's driving a little bit higher than his level, at a higher level than his novice status suggests. So he's definitely seems to have some decent natural pace behind the wheel of a Caterham. He's holding off these very fast drivers at this point in time, but he's got to do so now for the next 18 minutes, and that's not going to be any easy task by any stretch of imagination. So Stephen Lyle then brings them back onto the pit straight once more, and that lead get the train, you can see that it's starting to just close back in and get a little bit bigger. Whereas Payne sets the fastest lap of the race. Now he's up to 5th position, so he can smell the front. I think I just saw a glimpse of him there. And here comes Blair Mcconaughey, taking advantage of where's Carl Jones getting held up there. He's now going to look to the outside line to challenge and mount the pressure on Stephen Lyle. Carl Jones says, "Excuse me, Blair, I'll have that back if you don't mind, thank you." Back into 2nd place. And now look, there's Wes Payne. You can see him, look, the shiny pink pearlescent number 38 car is all the way up into 5th position. Also in there too is Darrell Cresswell in the number 8 machine. There he goes. And look at that, was Cresswell. Was that going past both of those? Was Wes Payne going past the Dan Clayfan? 7th place also for Fraser Jones in the black and white Caterham. There he is at the back of the train. But lots of scraps going on here, and it's those cars that started deeper in the field that are starting to make the progress forwards towards the field. And it means that one thing we talked about earlier on, the harder this lot in front keep on holding each other up, the much easier it is for the task of those behind them to try and catch them, to do just that, to catch up to them and to latch onto the tail. So where's Payne's car, which you definitely can't miss. It certainly stands out with that pearlescent paint scheme. It's either, when you look at it at a certain angle, it's either pink or it's blue. So certainly quite unique looking paint scheme. He's up to 4th now. Possible 3rd place. He's having a dive up the inside. He has a look and just wasn't far enough alongside under the braking zone to get himself through. So he has to sit back behind Blair Mcconaughey, who in turn is still chasing Carl Jones, who in turn is still chasing Stephen Lyle. So that's all action at the front of the field so far. There's a big scrap going on for 8th behind. We'll focus on the leaders for now, but there's a big scrap going on for 8th between Peter Wales, Paul Farrell, Jeff Steele, Ryan Errol was in there, William Brunt, Paul Herndon. Lots of drivers in the mix for those final top 10 spots and beyond. Here comes Wes Payne. He wants a podium. Side by side into Paddock Hill Bennett. Side by side for the lead. They're 2 by 2 into Paddock Hill. Down the other side, up Halewood Hill. A little wide for Carl Jones over the curves, but they all stay as they cross the line. Closing back up into Druids, also getting close now. Dan Clayfan starting to close the gap in, as is also Darrell Cresswell and Fraser Jones. It is 7 for the podium at least, if not the victory. And there's still, believe it or not, 15.5 minutes to go. We still haven't hit halfway just yet. We're just about to. Already we've got plenty of stories here to look at, and there's plenty of speculation and plenty of reasons to stay invested here. Safety car's been called. Safety car's been scrambled on my timing screen, so everyone will back up and back off the pace. So safety car's been deployed. We're just waiting to see if, well, they're still racing. And, yeah, Wes Payne saw that, so he was just about to make a move on Darrell Cresswell. There's a big lock-up for Fraser Jones, which really caught him out. And that's the reason why there was a car just off there in the gravel trap. Now, I was about to try and catch who it was before we cut to it. Oh, it's Ryan Errol off the road. Ryan Errol in car 33. He was in the fight for the top 10 positions. I suspect it was quite a tightly bunched pack. Either he's just misjudged the speed into the corner and gone off himself, or potentially he was helped, but not having seen that on the camera, it's not 100% as to the exact cause of why he's in the gravel trap. The simple question, did he jump or was he pushed? I'm not quite sure at the moment. So the safety car has left its position just on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. There it is. And so once again, we get an appearance now for the 4th race in a row from the RunYourFleet.com Jaguar XF Sport Brake safety car. That's somebody's, I'm not quite sure what that is actually, whether it's a piece of bodywork or it's, that might be one of the wings on the car that someone's possibly run over, and that's possibly some of the fiberglass as a result, I think. It's off the racing line, so it shouldn't cause too much of a problem. So what this now does, of course, is it brings the pack back together. It means we're going to get quite a nice sprint to the second half of the race. The rescue and recovery crews are going to head down to perform a snatch to try and grab Ryan Errol's car out of the gravel, and they'll put it behind the barriers, or at least up against the barriers, to make sure it's the furthest away from the track as possible. And then that means that when we go forwards into our next couple of races, we've got, after this, 4 more races. We've got our 2 Caterham Academy Championship races, which are sandwiching the first of 2 this weekend for the Classic and Modern Motorsport Club's Southern Division for their Super Saloons and Tin Tops. And then we round off today's action with the first race of 2 for the weekend for the Caterham 7 310R Championship. And of course tomorrow we've got extra action. The Academy heads off, and that's replaced by not just the Track Attack Race Club for their another appearance on a Brscc live stream, the 2nd this season, but also we get our second look on live stream of the excellent Zio Prototype Cup, which is new for 2021. I know that both Grace Williams, who's the coordinator, and her father Duncan Williams, who's of course been a long-term sports prototype racer, have been working incredibly hard behind the scenes to get that off the ground, and this is their 2nd meeting. They're very pleased with the 15-16 car entry that they have, and they said there's possibly as many as 20 for the final meeting of the year for them at Donington Park at the end of September. And of course on top of that, they're going to move forwards to continue to build the grids and get more sports prototypes back out in that fantastic mixed class sports prototype series. Very much is reminiscent of when we had the OSS Championship a couple of years ago. So it certainly almost feels a bit like in a way, a slight rebirth of that championship series in a way. But it is a series, which means that it's just to get it off the ground and to find some interest. So that'll be in action tomorrow. So be sure to keep an eye on that when we go live tomorrow. Their 2 races will be in the afternoon after lunch. It'll be the race 15 and the very final race of the weekend, race number 20. So be sure to tune in for that if you're watching on the Brscc stream. So of course, hello to everyone who's watching on our live stream feeds, both on Facebook and on YouTube, both the Caterham and Brscc streams. So of course for Caterham it's just the Caterham race that we're showcasing on your feed. If you're watching the Brscc feed, you have everything that's racing this weekend, including the excellent Formula 4 race that we had. Of course we've got that Classic and Modern Motorsport Club Tin Tops and Super Saloons race coming up in a couple of races time after this one. We then have, of course, after this one we've got our first of 2 Academy races, then the CMMC Southern Saloons and Tin Tops, and another Academy race for the white group, and then the 310Rs will round off the action for today. So just to quickly reaffirm the point situation coming into the weekend, the lights are still on the safety car, I can see out the window, so no change for them. So the point situation coming to the weekend, we mentioned, this is now on drop scores we're counting. It's 102 points after the 2 worst results taken away for Blair Mcconaughey. He was leading in the points overall anyway by 10 points. That gap has only reduced to 8 on drop scores to Harry Eyre in 2nd place. 3rd place for Carl Jones. 4th for Rob Keogh, who's not here this weekend. 5th is for Stuart Bell, who's not here. 6th for Chris Ephraimidis, who's not here. And then we have 7th place for Fraser Jones, 8th for, and again, forgive me, I've got the name wrong here. It was Tim Steele, not Jeff Steele. Forgive me for that. Jeff Steele is someone who's quite prominent at BMW, so not Tim Steele. So my apologies for that. So Tim Steele is equal 7th with Fraser Jones on. Let's have a look. On overall points, he's equal. Wes Payne is currently 9th, because I'm sure with the result he gets here, he'll start to improve much quicker. And then in 10th at the moment is Will Rossetti, who again is not here this weekend, but he's certainly trying to make up as many points as possible. So 9.5 minutes to go in this race, still under the safety car. The recovery of Ryan Errol's car is still continuing. I think they're almost done. The car's up in the air, being carried up by the crane. It's just being put behind the safety barrier, so it's just leaving its site now, just out of my commentary box window, which means we should, I think, hopefully, given that everyone is so tightly bunched together, we might even get the restart this time by, if not, I'm pretty confident, next time by. Not the one this time by we'll go across the line, but this lap after this one. Get them going again. Now, arbor lights out on the safety car. The answer is... I'm not sure they're off just yet. I was trying to keep tabs, see if they were off or not. They're still going around at a certain pace. Are they off? We need to. It disappeared from my view. I'm trying to see if we can have a look at the safety car, see if the lights have indeed gone off, because everyone is stacking up. So it suggests that they might have done, but if we can get a shot of the safety car just to confirm that, that'd be quite nice to see. So make their way back around again. And I think, no, we're going to get one more time around, I think, so rather than that, because they're just repositioning the snatch vehicles. So, still the order remains the same. Stephen Lyle in the lead, Carl Jones in 2nd place, Blair Mcconaughey is 3rd, 4th for Wes Payne, 5th for Dan Clayfan, 6th for Darrell Cresswell, 7th for Fraser Jones, 8th for Peter Wales, 9th for Paul Farrell, and 10th for William Brunt. After this weekend, we're going deep into the second half of the season. Now we've got Croft coming up at the beginning of September. We then have, at the beginning of October, we have Snetterton on the 300 circuit, which is where we finished the season last year. And then we have Cabell Park just about towards the end of the festival, I think, of these month, a couple of weeks later, to finish off the season, which is where they started 2020 last year. So plenty of great circuits coming up, which will certainly see the 270R title settled, as well as many others in the Caterham Motorsport paddock. Now then, the safety car lights have definitely gone out this time, which means it is time for Stephen Lyle to assume the role of safety car in this pack. And so he now decides when he wants to put his foot down to build up the revs and to get this race back underway again. There is 7 minutes to go. Who is going to come out on top? Stephen Lyle is going to have an excellent opportunity here to take a victory. He hasn't done so yet. The closest he's got was 3rd place twice, one at Knockhill and one at Silverstone. He could take his first win of the season here if he can pull off a good restart and hold on for the next 6 3/4 minutes. Across the line they go then to get racing back underway in the 270R Championship race number 1 here at Brands Hatch. And at Paddock Hill Bend, Carl Jones is going on the attack, as is also Blair Mcconaughey, who gets a great run off corner. Up Hellwood Hill they go, and look at Wes Payne in 4th place, car number 38, watch for him. Now remind you, he started all the way back, if I remind myself where he was, in 19th on the grid. So from 19th to 4th at the moment, if he can make it onto the podium, what a drive that will be. He has got time to do it, but if he wants to get himself higher than 4th, he's going to have to get his elbows out and get gutsy with 1 or 2 of his moves. Through the left-hander of Surtees, the right-hander of McLaren, all the way at the top of the circuit at Clearways. And then as the circuit opens out now through that fast Clark curve, you can see there McConaughey, which is a little bit out of the toe from Carl Jones, but Jones has latched onto the rear of Stephen Lyle absolutely perfectly. Down the pit straight he goes, looks to the outside, side by side, late braking into the right-hander, down the hill at Paddock. Carl Jones keeps going, he keeps moving down the outside, holds on. He's going to try and squeeze himself alongside as they run up towards the top of the hill at Druids. As you can see, Lyle keeps that car neatly in the middle of the road and just hugs the apex to try and force the Carl Jones to be backed into Blair Mcconaughey and co. And that's starting to work here because Blair is just putting Jones and Lyle a bit more under pressure here. 4th for Payne, 5th for Clayfan, 6th for Cresswell. Jones, Wales, Brunt and Morris, top 10 so far. Still 5 and a bit minutes to go. Again, Lyle under threat as they come back into McLaren through clearways. So much pressure being applied to Stephen Lyle. He's been a front-running contender pretty much from the word go when he did his first rounds. I think it was at Knockhill he joined in the championship. He didn't take place to put part at Donington Park. But every race he drives, he certainly proved to himself and the paddock that he's absolutely worthy of being towards the front. He's driving as if he's been here for quite a while. Up the hill again, back towards Druids once more. Down the outside again under brakes goes Carl Jones. He's forcing Stephen Lyle to go to that tight defensive line that's slowing him up. And look at everyone else that's closing in. Clayfan's closing in. Cresswell's closing in. Fraser Jones is closing in. So is Peter Wales. So is William Brunt. And the number 56 in there too. 56 is David Morgan. David Morgan's up to 10th from 24th on the grid. So some incredible moves through the pack. As now into the lead has gone Carl Jones. There's a move that's been made on the exit of Graham Hill Bend, and now Carl Jones, if he's got the pace in clear air, will try and pull away here. So Carl Jones then now hits the front, but Stephen Lyle's not finished. He's got the chance to try and get him back here. Oh, he dummies to the inside line. If he can pull this off, it'll be a superb move. They will to will up the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. If he makes it stick, he'll make it happen. That is a brilliant pass, a fantastic dummy move up into Paddock Hill Bend, and this guy's got a rookie cross on the back of him. Fantastic stuff from Stephen Lyle. Back into the lead. He's taken it to Carl Jones and said, right, you want to pass me? Try that one on for size. Fantastic. He really isn't afraid to get his elbows out and make a gutsy move. That was brilliant stuff. They're all stacking up behind him, though. Top three are trying to pull away a bit more here. McConaughey sat there in third place, swarming all over the rear of Carl Jones's car. There's still just under 3.5 minutes to go, so there's all to play for here at the moment. The scrap for fourth looks pretty tasty, too. We've got Dan Clayfan. Where's Payne? Darrell Cresswell. Fraser Jones running a bit wide. Here comes Peter Wales. He wants to get involved too. He started 10th, currently 8th at the moment. Here's your top three. Lyle astern, just over 3 minutes to go. Lyle, Jones, McConaughey, that's the top three. Clayfan 4th, Where's Payne in 5th. And again looking to the outside line, Carl Jones wants the lead. Side by side exit the corner, but Carl Jones has run wide. And up the middle looks like it's going to be Blair Mcconaughey. There's that fight going on 5th, 6th and 7th. Meanwhile, there's McConaughey up the inside of Charles Jones. They're going to be side by side down towards Graham Hill Bend, but it'll be the inside line, the right line that Carl Jones needs to hold on to second. Meanwhile, Dan Clayfan's defending like his life depends on it from Wes Payne, and he too now is going to come under threat from Darrell Cresswell. Three separate battles kicking off here for the lead for 4th and for 7th place. There are scraps everywhere in the top 10. This is brilliant stuff. Less than 2.5 minutes to go as they come back out through Clark Curve, and there is no telling who's going to win this race. Is it going to be Lyle? Will it be Carl Jones? Will it be McConaughey? Will it be anyone behind the top three? Side by side, back to Paddock Hill Bend once more. Carl Jones tries to break later, doesn't work. Lyle goes toe to toe with him into the right-hander, down the hill. Look at the run that McConaughey gets up the inside of Jones, and has to try and slingshot past Lyle, who throws the block. Look at Wes Payne down the outside line, past everyone. He's going to steam down the outside of 1, 2, maybe 3 of them into the hairpin at Druids. He gets past Darrell Cresswell, past Dan Clayfan at last. Up the inside for third, past McConaughey. It's going to be side by side on the exit. McConaughey's put 2 wheels onto the curb, but now they're side by side with Wes Payne on the inside line for Surtees. If he stays where he is, he'll be on the inside for Surtees. McConaughey has to capitulate, and he does, up to P3. Remember, this is Wes Payne from 19th on the grid into a current podium place, and there's still, I think, 2 more laps to go. That was Darrell Cresswell battling with Fraser Jones. He's got Fraser Jones to his inside now, and also in there to his Peter Wales. There's more battles further back as well, but it's the leaders we need to see. There's a scrap going on there. That's between, I think that's McLean and Heath as they come. McLean and someone further back in the pack. So I'll have to have a check on that in a minute. Meanwhile, Lyle and Jones continue to go at it, but where's Payne? Is there a possibility here with about 1.5 laps to go? Could he steal a second place or even a win? It's possible, but he has to really get his elbows out and get a move on. He's got a great exit from Surtees, down the Cooper Straight, side by side, looking up the inside. He's going for second place on Carl Jones into Surtees. They're side by side, but still Jones holds on. Where's Payne trying to get the undercut here as they turn back in towards the right-hander at Clearways. and back on the power again. They're going to head across the start-finish line to start the last lap of this. It's another typical thriller of a Caterham race, and there's still no guarantee who's going to win this. It's 5 for the lead down the pit straight. Here comes Carl Jones, side by side for the final lap of the race. West Payne looks to try and shoot the gap through the middle. That was closed quickly. Into paddock they go. Here comes McConaughey up for third place again. He's looking up the inside of West Payne, but there's no way to get through. Back up the hill again, back towards Drury's, down the outside for second, looks West Payne, he's going for it, gets forced out wide. Here comes McConaughey back up the inside, but still he cannot get through. If West Payne can still at least stay here, he'll be delighted with a third place. Half a lap for Stephen Lyle to hold on, but it might be a sprint finish, the first photo finish that we've had for the victory possibly. Carl Jones is looking this way and that, but he still cannot find a way past the man with the rookie plate, Stephen Lyle, but he's driving like he's far from it. In towards McLaren, into Clearways and Clark Kerr for the final time. It will be the sprint to the checkered flag. Who's going to pick it up? The run's the checkered flag. He hasn't finished higher than 4th this season. That's about to change because Stephen Lyle, I think, will try and hold on. Carl Jones close. It's going to be side by side to line 3 abreast at the flag. Who got it on the line? Oh, Jones stole it on the line. Unbelievable. Carl Jones stole it on the line. That is a sensational finish. Carl Jones steals the victory by the monumental gap of 31 thousandths of a second. My goodness. Carl Jones, what a steal. An absolute steal from Carl Jones, who takes the victory by that short of a margin. But hats off to Alistair, for Stephen Lyle. What a drive he put up the entire race. It will be his best finish of the season. But he was merely denied by 31 thousandths of a second for his first Caterham victory. That will be agonising, but he'll be delighted and thrilled with that second place. And Carl Jones is just tapping the roll cage. He knows that that was a brilliant finish. Wow, West Payne gets third. That's an incredible drive for him. Let's just run down that. Carl Jones somehow wins that by 31 thousandths of a second. It's then Stephen Lyle's second. West Payne takes the third from 19th on the grid and the fastest lap point to boot. Blair Mcconaughey's 4th from Dan Clayfan in 5th. Then Cresswell, Wales, Jones, Morgan and Brunt round out the top 10. Curtis gets 11th, McLean is 12th, and it's Herndon, followed by Steele, Gaunt, Harry Eyre managed to fight back from the back of the pack after he spun to 16th. Duncan Cook comes next, then Paul Farrell, Michael Curley, and John Cox round out the top 20. And then Oliver Smith, Stephen Hutchison, and Richard Hoare the finishers. Only one non-finisher, that was Ryan Errol, who came out in the gravel trap at Paddock Hill Bend after he went off and caused the safety car in that race. Wow, what another sensational, thrilling Caterham race that was. And there's still, incredibly, 3 more still to come. And I thought that was great. Jake, we've got something to work on our hands here because First Academy race is coming up. Can they possibly even top that?
Wow, just wow. Half an hour of racing. Anybody who would have told you before the start of that race that the guy starting on pole would end up winning it, that would have sounded dull. However, it's Caterham's, so it's never going to be dull. Amazing stuff. Now we come on to the world of the Academy. Now this is obviously the start of the racing journey for all of our competitors in the Caterham paddock. One of the nicest things that we've observed over the course of the weekend, though, check this out, straight away, the Orange Army is on every single one of the cars here, and it's been very nice indeed to see the drivers as they've come in at the end of every race is hooting the horns in respect for the marshals here. Very, very sombre occasion for many of the officials. There has obviously been a few tears already shed over the course of the weekend, but it's wonderful to see that the camaraderie and the brotherhood of the race drivers and the respect they've shown the marshals all weekend long has just been fantastic. Long may that continue even after this weekend. Let's go to our pole sitter, Ian Harris, who's getting himself ready for action. Ian,
yes.
The perfect starting position. You are in a very good mood today.
Well, we had a very wet qualification, which I managed to get pole, which I was actually quite surprised about, but I'm not complaining. Everyone's geared up now for a dry race, so let's hope this holds out. And yeah, it's going to be a good race. It's a very tough track to overtake. We're all very close. It's going to be interesting.
Now, with this being such a short track, and obviously the laps just tick away, it must be a bit of a tunnel vision sometimes when you're trying to drive with other people. You get lost in the zone almost.
Yeah, 100%. So where we were at Silverstone the other day, we were at 2 minutes something per lap. This is a 55, 56 second lap. You kind of get into a rhythm, but then what I find is if you're then doing quite well and you look down at your timer and you've got 12 minutes to go, they're the longest 12 minutes of your life because you're looking at them going, please end because I'm going to come, you know, wherever that may be. So it goes both ways.
Well, fantastic. Hopefully you're going to stay towards the front for the entirety of. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Excellent. Let's go and talk with Freddie Chidix, who is the man fighting with him at the sharp end of the field. It's definitely going to be an interesting race for him from second on the grid. Freddie, what a fantastic 2021 season. It just keeps getting better and the results just keep coming. How is it from second place?
Yeah, it's good. Looking forward to this race. I like the wet, I like the dry, so I don't mind. It's going to be fun either way.
And obviously with this being the Academy season, your first real taste of motor racing at this level, could you ever imagine that you would be fighting at the front end of the field in your first year?
No, I hoped I would, but to be actually doing it is brilliant.
Now, obviously making your way from a novice in the Academy through to racing, just how tough has the transition been?
It's tough. I didn't think we'd be doing so much testing and practice. I thought we'd just turn up and go and race. Reality is you need to do a lot more than that, but it's worth it.
Fantastic. Good luck out there. Have a great race.
Thank you.
And as the drivers have already mentioned, the weather is definitely taking a turn for the better. However, if you look over there, that is not looking particularly promising. That rain cloud is coming over once again, and I can already start to feel, Scott, those first few ominous drops of rain. Could be another spicy one for these poor Academy drivers. They really are going to have a minefield to deal with out there.
I always jokingly said that I'd love to see their faces when they head down towards Paddock Hill Pendant Racing Speed for the first time. Must be quite a picture, but yeah, the Academy drivers, of course, in that very first season race that they're contending, you get basically an all-in package for 30 grand. You keep the car at the end of the season, but basically 30 grand buys you pretty much the entire season. So with the Academy drivers, you always have to start, as every single driver is in the Academy, as a complete novice. That means you cannot have held any racing licence in any discipline, as far as I'm aware, at all. You have to be a complete racing novice. You can't have held any kind of racing licence or even a karting licence at all. You can't have done any racing whatsoever. That means from there, you then get shown the ropes by going through your ARDS test together with everyone else that's in your respective group. You also then get to do a handling and test day, a drift day, setup day, everything that you need to get to grips with the car, and also being around in the Caterham Motorsport paddock environment. And then usually the Academy will then start not on the circuits but on a sprint, so they get them used to some solo competitive driving, and usually go to places like Aintree or Kerbra. They did it at Rockingham one year as well, but Kerbra was this year, and then they've already had their first 4 races of the season. Their first round was at Mallory Park, I think quite a nice circuit to start things off, nice and simple. Then they had a double header up in Scotland at Knock Hill, which is quite a treat for the Academy, and then they had their an incredible race at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and because the circuit was so big, it was big enough, it was essentially one big Academy race with both green and white group cars on the grid at the same time together, and essentially just lining up based on their qualifying positions based on green and white. So if you on one side of the grid had all the green group cars, the other side had all the white group cars, and that was a race together on track. And it gave us a bit of a prelude for what we normally get at the end of the year, which is the non-championship Awesome Trophy, which happens at the last rounds of the season, and that is pretty much what I call what I like to call a graduation race for them, which is no championship points, no sort of connotations for anything in terms of the title. Quite simply, just a final race to essentially see them graduate, in many cases, from the Academy, just for a trophy and some bragging rights. That's how it should be in many cases, but it's after all the racing's done. It's a perfect way for them to sign off what will have been a memorable first year of racing in the Academy. So, given that the subscription for the Academy is that big, they have to split them off into 2 groups. So they have a green group and a white group, and this is the green group who are heading off for their first race. They're only racing today. They have 1 race each this weekend, so the green group goes first, and each has its own respective championship points table. So the green group obviously having their own races means that they have a battle in the point standings. Coming to the weekend, Freddie Chidix leads the way with 112 points. We saw was talking to Jake just now. He leads by 5 by Mark Jones with 107. Jeff Newman is then third with 100 points, meaning there's 12 points separating the first 3 cars. Then it's a tie for 4th at the moment on overall points between James Cook and Mark Kendall, with Robert Domain on 83 points, a further 10 points back from that tie for 4th. It's then 82 points for Mark Williams. And Ian Harris, who starts on pole, is on 81 points and starts in his 18 points, but he's going to start from pole for the first time. He won the sprint back at Kerbra. And it's Chris Fraser and Philip Clark rounding out the top 10. Let's give you the grid though, for as they come up towards the start of the race. We're getting the first couple of boards up before we get underway. So that's the 1 minute board and 30-second board is preparing the drivers for their green flag lap. And whilst they're off in that formation, we'll give you the grid in a moment. You get 25 points for a win, 23 for second, 22 for third. You also get a fastest lap point as well if you take it in your class as well. So to head off on their formation lap, it is, as we saw, Ian Harris, who will start on pole position, and he starts alongside the championship leader Freddie Chidix on the front row of the grid in car 66. Then row 2 is a rather unexpected third place for Theo Theato, who comes to the weekend 16th in points and hasn't finished higher in a race than, I think that is 11th, I think he's finished. No, a correct lie. That was actually, he finished in 8th. So that was at the last round at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. And he's had some much improved pace. He now starts third on the grid alongside Mark Jones, who's the current runner-up in the championship. Then it's Jeff Newman, third in points, and Paul Woodman, who, it's fair to say those two have a bit of a rivalry so far this year, and so they'll be starting together on the third row of the grid. That should be spicy. It's then James Cook and Chris Fraser on the fourth row of the grid, followed by Mark Williams and Robert Domain to round out the top 10. Mark Kendall comes next on the sixth row, alongside Paul Castle. Then it's Joe Priday and Philip Clark on row 7. Rob Bain and Oliver Hardick come on the 8th row of the grid, followed by John Hood and Richard Percy. Then it's John Vincent, Ian Bettis and Isla Lowe to round out our 21 car grid for the green group in this year's Caterham Academy. So everyone making their way around, and of course remember this will be it's only their 5th ever proper circuit racing start. So this is certainly something they're still continuing to learn. Of course, all of them have the novice crosses on the back of their cars. Of course, that's the yellow square with the black cross. That denotes they've done less than 6 competitive races. And of course, just like sort of students throw their sort of hats into the air, whatever they're called, when they graduate, they get to rip off the novice cross on the back of the car when they graduate from the academy. And of course, then they get to move into the road sports and then carry on their racing journey as they see fit. But the plan is to stay in and amongst the Caterham Motorsport paddock and move up from academy, then road sport, then 270, 310, and of course the 7 UK Champion UK at the top of the ladder. So cars making their way into position on the grid. Quick colour check. It is Ian Harris in the blue car on pole position. The black car alongside him, Freddie Chidix, is there alongside. The orange car, which I think has got some animated sort of tiger or cat graphics on there, is third. It's the green and grey car of Mark Jones in 4th. Jeff Newman's car is the blue and white car with the yellow roll cage. And then it's the white and red car with the black roll cage. That is Paul Woodman in 6th position. James Cook is there in 7th in the black and red car. And then it's the 8th place position car, Chris Fraser, as they get underway from race number 1 for the green group. And it is a great start for Freddie Chidix and for Mark Jones. Not such a great start for Ian Harris, and also a good getaway as well for Jeff Newman, who looks up the inside for 3rd place. But it's Chidix, the points leader, who leads from his main rival in the championship so far, Mark Jones. The top 2 head up Halewood Hill together, nose to tail for the first time. Close back in under brakes, and it is going to be Chidix from Jones. Then it's going to be 3rd place for Ian Harris. Jeff Newman's dropped back behind, it looks like, Theo Theato and also Paul Woodman. So Paul's made a good start up to 5th. I'm sure Tim Liddell will be pleased. So he'll be up into 5th position. He's challenging for 4th already on Theo. Looking to try and get himself up the inside. And Paul's one of those drivers who has had decent pace, had very strong pace, but just hasn't had the best of luck. He got involved in an incident at Anglesey in his second race. He also missed out what could have been a strong result at the opening round at Mallory Park, but he went straight on at the hairpin and managed to recover to what was a very close 6th position. So he's got some work to do, but he has got some strong pace out there. Certainly we'll try and use it here in this first race. 20 minutes in this academy race as they come across the line for the first time. It's Chidix who leads, Jones in 2nd, but under threat from poleman Ian Harris in 3rd. Theo Theato is 4th, Mark Kendall is 5th, but it's 6th position for Paul Woodman. So for Jeff Newman, who was quite a dominant victor in the overall, as well as the green group race for the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, he's now going into combat with Mark Kendall. In there too is James Cook in the number 15 car. There, that's the sort of charcoal grey car with a little red flash on the roll bar. Watch out for him as he's on the back of Jeff Newman. Then we have in the bottom of the top 10, it is going to be Mark Williams, followed by Joe Priday. Joe's made a good start. He started 13th, up 3 spots to 10th already. So a few more positions gained. Now round through Clarent, through Clearways and Clark Curve. So yeah, biggest gainer was Joe Priday, 3 spots gained on the start there. No, biggest gainer was Mark Kendall. He started 11th, is up to 5th. So it's the green car there with the sort of pinkish red stripe down the middle. That is Mark Kendall. He's got a great start, but might be demoted here by a late braking Jeff Newman, who does slip up the inside into paddock and makes his way past into what looks to be sixth position. Mark wasn't done leading through there. He was like, you might be one of the best, the top drivers out there in the academy, this group, but I quite like my position back, if you don't mind. He wants the position back again. Looks, I'm sure, Mark Jones, because there goes Ian Harris, squeezing back into second place at the expense of Mark. They'll come back at him on the exit. They're going to be side by side. And the great thing is, they might be rookie drivers, but some of the racecraft they're putting up already is absolutely brilliant. They've had some fantastic battles. And this is a great proving ground to do it, of course, because these guys are all in identical Caterham Academy cars, 125 brake horsepower. As I mentioned, Caterhams are pretty much, in my view, that like you call them the Formula Ford of sports cars, because they're small, they're relatively unaerodynamic. They also have, you know, very skinny Avon tyres. They have Ford engines, and they really do, like Formula Fords and single seaters, teach car control, teach car setup. They really do teach racecraft. They are great, pure driving machines to drive on a track and to get used to in terms of being able to get used to the whole racecraft and racing aspect. So it really is a fantastic way to get started. Paul Woodman makes the dive finally up the inside of Theo Theato. And let's make the move stick. So that's Paul up into fourth position. Or is it? Because Theo goes straight back up the inside. And luckily Paul saw that coming. He took the wider approach. He was quite cautious that Theo was going to steam up the inside and possibly collect it. But thankfully he didn't. I think Theo thought better of that move and decided to hold back a little bit. But Theo's having a great run so far. What is currently his best performance so far in his early stages of this race. Had an incredible qualifying, starting third on the grid, but keeping himself in the top 6 or so. But then again, Jeff Newman and co might have something to say about that in a minute, because Jeff has latched onto his slipstream. But then again, Theo has the tow from Paul Woodman. Now Newman's got a double tow down towards Paddock Hill Bend. There's also Mark Kendall in the green, number 35. Oh, and the Theo Theato's big sideways moment under brakes. How on earth did he catch that? And somehow he's managed to get in front of Paul Woodman. That's quite an orthodox way of making a pass, but a pass is an overtake is an overtake, and he's got through. 3 abreast at Drury's. Mark Kendall up the inside of both Woodman and Jeff Newman. Woodman shows Newman the edge of the road and says, "Don't think so. I remember not kill." And they turn in through Graham Hill Bend. And Mark Kendall with a great drive here. I think Paul Woodman, even though he wants to get at the front, he's probably sort of enjoying himself here, being in amongst this pack and having a great fight. Pretty certain all these drivers, every time they get out of the car, if it's been a trouble-free race, get out with the biggest smile on their faces, because it is such a great way for these drivers who are, let's say, completely brand new to jump into racing, and to do so in such a fantastically coordinated package like Caterham Motorsport. And it really is a great way. If you're watching this and haven't raced before, but you always wanted to, and you happen to have, as some people might do, a spare 30 grand, you might be able to go racing this way. Jeff Newman's taking advantage of that. Straight up the inside of Mark Kendall into Paddock Hill Bend. He's in now into 6th position. There's the top 2. So that's 2nd and 3rd, forgive me. That was Mark Jones ahead of Ian Harris. Freddie Chidix has a 3-second lead. There he is at the top of the shot, look. Heading out of Paddock of Graham Hill Bend. So a great run so far for Freddie. Oh, and there goes Jeff Newman. Big move up the inside of Paul Woodman. Just slightly edges him out of the way. And Mark Kendall gets a good run. So also does, that was James Cook. 4 of them all together. There's James getting past. Both Mark Kendall and James Cook got past Paul. And also Kendall's got past Newman as well. So Kendall started that lap here. He was in between Woodman and Newman. He's got, not only has Paul Woodman been passed by both of them, but Kendall stayed ahead of Newman and just kind of re-passed him when he got through before. So Chidix then, 14 minutes to go already, 6 minutes left, there's been 6 minutes gone, there's been so much action, it's been pretty enjoyable all the way through from the start. Now they turn their way up the hill. There's Mark Jones being chased down by Ian Harris, those two still pretty close. Of course Mark Jones, as we said, came into the weekend he's second in points, 5 back on overall scores. It's 112 points for Freddie Chidix, who's taken so far just the 1 win. That was the 2nd race at Knock Hill. Mark Jones has yet to take a win, but he has taken 3 third places and a 2nd at Knock Hill in that 2nd race. There was an incident in that 2nd race which did see a few of the main contenders drop back a bit and lose some points as a result, including Jeff Newman and the likes of Ian Harris and I think Chris Fraser, and also Paul Woodman was involved in that, and Mark Jones was the big beneficiary out of all of it. Never like to benefit in that way from an accident, but points-wise, he got a massive haul and managed to climb up to 2nd place on the declared result after it was red flagged. But now here, proving his pace at the front of the field. So Mark Jones doing a grand job here. It's kind of like a factory-coloured Caterham here. It's the kind of Caterham green with the grey. Was not going to save him from a move from Ian Harris though, as up the inside goes Ian back into 2nd place, and we're back to square one again. So Ian back into P2. Jones will try and get him back as they come back towards Graham Hill Bend. He's very close, and he'll look for that undercut on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. Meanwhile, somehow Theo Theato is still fourth. But it's no discredit to his driving ability, but the fact he's had so many cars just rearing up behind him, it's been a testament to how well his defensive efforts are getting. He's getting out again here because Jeff Newman looks to go straight round the outside through Surtees. Took the very wide approach into the corner. That wasn't going to work as well as Theo Theato's proper racing line. Paul Woodman stays in 6th position. It's still Kendall, then Cook, then Chris Fraser, and then it's Mark Williams rounding out the top 10. Here comes Newman, who was the overall winner at Silverstone. He's dumbing this way and that, looking for the move, trying to put Theo off here, but Theo's putting in quite a drive here to hold on. And he will not capitulate. He's not going to let Jeff Newman get through pretty easily. And here comes Paul Woodman. These two have got a bit of a rivalry going on. And now down the outside he goes. Meanwhile, Ian Fraser, I think, has got back past... Ian Harris has got, I think, maintained his position ahead of Mark Jones, but only just. He was quite wide on the exit of Druids there. Managed to gather it back up again pretty quickly. But look, you can see they're all starting to stack up behind Theato again. You've got Newman and Woodman, Kendall. Also then there too has moved up with Chris Fraser. Cook slipped behind Chris now, so that's a change for 8th position. This is 4th down to 8th. In fact, Derek's even 9th because James Cook is in there too, so Jeff Newman just trying to sneak up the inside just on the right rear corner of Theo Theato, but the loss of momentum has now given Paul Woodman a chance not only try and pull alongside, but to try and steal the toe that Theo had. But moving across back to the racing line has given Newman the toe. Kendall darts out to try and get past Woodman, who throws the block as he tries to go on the wide approach into Paddock Hill Bend. Round the outside goes Jeff Newman. Brilliant pass. It's not impossible to do that, and Paul Woodman's wide on the exit. He's let Kendall through, Fraser through, maybe even James Cook as well. So that could be possible. Woodman down to 9th. Oh, he'll be kicking himself. They all squeeze through again. Also in there too appears to be Mark Williams and also Robert Domain back up the inside. And oh, that was never going to work for Paul Woodman. Big dive up the inside line, and once again, over exuberance from Paul Woodman, just catching him out. And he's now dropped down several spots. He's behind Robert Domain. Also has gone through, I think, is Mark Williams. Joe Priday's got through. So he's outside the top 10 now, unfortunately. So he's got some work to do. He's got the second half of the race to go, which is just over 10.5 minutes. So he'll be trying to work hard to get past. Now, Jeff Newman's got past Theo Theato, so he has managed to squeeze through. We saw him make that move down at Paddock Hill Bend. Here comes Mark Kendall this time. So anything you can do, Jeff, I'll have a go myself. And again, tries to set him up, looks for the undercut, but Theo neatly puts the car in the middle of the road. This is a good drive for Theo. As I say, it's certainly his best qualifying of the season, and certainly having his best race of the season as well. That's of Druids. Pulled a small car gap now, pulled a small gap of about a car length or so on Mark Kendall. Ian Harris is, sorry, that's Chris Fraser, who's moved up to 7th position. Meanwhile, back out in front, you haven't really talked about him too much because he's been that far out in the lead. Almost 7 seconds to the good is Freddie Chidix, and this is very much an un-Caterham-like lead he's got here. But very much enjoying the fact that everyone else behind is so preoccupied with battling themselves that they're pretty much just holding each other up. Here's the scrap for second. Still Ian Harris holding on ahead of Mark Jones. Of course, Ian comes into the weekend 8th in points. Whereas, of course, we said that Mark Jones is 2nd. Now, Jeff Newman, who's 3rd in points, has just popped in the fastest lap of the race, 56.569. He's lapping, would you believe, at least half a second quicker than all 3 cars in front of him. So he's actually he genuinely is not just the fastest man on track in terms of the fastest lap of the race, but genuinely the pace he's running in clear air makes him the man that everyone's got to try and hold off. There he is in the blue and yellow Caterham, car 33. Of course, Jeff has, he took the victory at Mallory Park, the victory in the first race at Knockhill, and then the Silverstone race earlier on as we go side by side for 2nd, and Mark Jones has a creep up the inside. He's trying to pull himself level on the exit through Clearways and Clark Corner, but again on the outside line where there's a little bit more grip, Ian Harris manages to just put the pedal a little bit quicker, a little bit better, and hold onto the position. End of another lap. Freddie Chidix steals the fastest lap of the race back again, 56.566 for Freddie, so he's responded to the lap that Newman's put in, so now he is now lapping the same pace as Newman is. Back up the inside again goes Jones, going to get it stopped for the hairpin. Yes, he can, parks it neatly on the apex for Druids. But now, again, all that scrapping, all that squabbling, is now just getting Jeff Newman into a position where he can challenge both of them. Bit of a tail. There was a little bit of a twitch of oversteer there just to help rotate the car through Graham Hill Bend for Newman. Further back, we can see Theo Theato. He's still holding back the tie, but doing a grand job whilst he's doing it. It's now Fraser 6th, Kendall 7th, Cook is 8th, Williams is 9th, and it's Domain 10th. The Paul Carson in 11th place, and after his mistake at Graham Hill Bend, Paul Woodman has slipped back to 12th, so outside the top 10 and not really where he wanted to be. Of course, he's pushing. He's credit for pushing hard. Meanwhile, I think we've got a battle possibly towards the leaders. I think I can hear the second commentator over the tunnel getting exciting, and it is for second, third, and fourth. It's up towards Drury's hairpin. Taking pretty close between the three of them. Into the hairpin they go. We need to switch back to them because they're heading up around the hairpin. There they are. So Mark Jones is into second place, but for third now around the outside goes Jeff Newman. Move is complete. He's into a podium place now. So one more car to pick off to get into second. And I was going to say, then he can start to chase after Freddie, but the fact he's 9 seconds up the road. They're lapping on similar pace, both Freddie and Jeff, so I really can't see him catching Freddie, unless, touchwood, there's a mistake. Up the inside, he goes for it! Oh, and that was close. Jeff Newman, ever the opportunity, looked for that gap, and Mark Jones just completely shut the door and said, "You're having a laugh, aren't you, Jeff? You're not coming up the inside there at Clearways. Not when I'm closing the gap that much." So Jeff will say, "Right, you're going to do that? I'll just stick it up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend." That's exactly what he's doing. Up the inside he goes, past the pack marker whilst he's at it. And a nice, neat pass into second place for Jeff Newman. Oh, and there was contact. Mark Jones just clipped the right rear there of Jeff Newman. It would have probably dislodged his rear wing, but that was a bit cheeky there for Mark. I don't think it was intentional, but certainly getting pretty close there. And Jeff now, I think, starting to feel a bit of the pressure. Here goes Ian Harris, back up for third, past Mark Jones. He just drives straight round the outside of him again for Graham Hill Bend. But this is what Jeff needs. He needs these two to keep on scrapping, because if he does, he'll start to pull away a bit more. And now, after that, for some reason, it's now starting to spread out a bit more. So maybe we can look back at the scraps going on for fifth, because it's now still Theo Theato with now Chris Fraser all over the back of him. Freddie Chidix puts in a new fastest lap of the race, you can see. The leader puts in a 56.459 to continue to extend the gap. It must be over 10 seconds by this point. But now, Theo under pressure from Chris Fraser, who's on the inside line. Mark Kendall will get a double toe here, as will James Cook. Further back, we can see, there's Paul Woodman, 12th position. Sorry, 11th, forgive me. He's behind Robert Domain, with Mark Williams just ahead of them in 9th. So Robert Domain, I notice as well, has got a slightly taller back end of the roll cage. I think it might be for his height, possibly, to try and accommodate him a little bit, but I've never seen a case where it's the odd one out in the field. They have slightly flatter roll cages for the, or slightly not as tall roll cages as the on the Robert Sports. Down the back straight, Theo still in 5th position, holding back for 6th. Now they're putting some cars further back in the top 10 there. You saw both Domain and Woodman just putting a lap on the back marker that the leaders came across a couple of laps ago. 4.5 minutes left in this Caterham Academy Green Group races. 20-minute encounter. Now Theo Theato, who's been an incredible defensive driver all the way through, and has had the pace to hold them off. He's having to put it up again now between the scrap for 5th and 6th place. Mark Kendall's getting in there pretty close as well. Just noticing out my window whilst we're looking at that. 2nd, 3rd and 4th look pretty set. So Jeff Newman, Mark Jones and Ian Harris are as they are. This is the battle we need to watch though. 5th, 6th and 7th. Theato, Fraser and Kendall. Ooh, and Fraser just misjudged the apex there, got a bit of a slide on. And that's lost in momentum, which is now going to put him under threat from both Kendall and a charging James Cook. Cook is looking up the inside into Surtees. He's through. So that's now into 8th position. No, 7th position goes James Cook at the expense of Mark, who goes down to 8th. And it's now Mark Williams and Paul Woodman who are catching them. And just saw them flash through the bottom of the shot. So they are starting to close in again. Look at their lap times. How's it looking? Well, they are lapping. Yeah, they're definitely lapping quicker. Paul Woodman actually did a 57.3. Out of Theato, Fraser, Cook, Kendall, Williams and Woodman. Although that before the one we just completed, he was the fastest out of them. So Paul trying to recover here as best he can. We've got the 48 and 5 here battling. That is Paul Castle having a scrap with Philip Clark. And that is over 12th position. Meanwhile, here's our battle for 5th. Theato, Fraser, Cook, Kendall, Look at this, Theato was a bit slower off the corner. Chris Fraser might have a chance to pounce here as they come into Surtees once more. There's not long left in the race, less than 3 minutes to go. And Theato genuinely having the race of his life at this point in time. Just trying to hold back the tide of all these constant attacks from everyone around him that's been battling away with him in the top 5 here. And not quite a chance for Chris Fraser to get through there. So he'll try again. This time he'll dart to the outside into Paddock Hill Bend, side by side on the brakes. And look at that, straight round the outside. Well, at least it was initially for Chris Fraser, but he loses out by just getting completely wide and trying to keep himself out of the gravel. Means that he's now just lost out to Mark Kendall as well. There is Jeff Newman, second place. And he might drop a couple more points to Freddie Chidix in the standings, but another win for him certainly be beneficial. So another second place, forgive me, because it's Freddie Chidix in the lead. There's Mark Jones, who will be happy with third, I'm sure. Solid points to try and keep him in the runner-up spot at this point. And it will do, because on overall points, you'd only drop 1 point. You get 23 points for second place, 22 for third. I'll get my maths right eventually. Less than 2 minutes left on the clock, as we see our almost not intentionally forgotten leader, Freddie Chidix. He's about 10 seconds up the road. I think Jeff's been trying to close him in a bit. He's 2/10 quicker was Jeff on Chidix last time, but the fact is the gap is that much that, touch wood, you need a pretty monumental mistake for Freddie to lose out. But let's see, with 1.25 minutes to go, there is Jeff. There's Mark Jones in third place. Fourth place there is Ian Harris, so good for him. That car in the background there's Isla Lowe. She's been put a lap down in this race so far, as the leader will be heading his way, I think, onto the pit straight. He might get maybe this lap and one more, maybe 2 more laps, because that time was stuck a bit there. So he must. That time's about 56, 57 seconds, and I'm pretty sure he would have crossed the line just before it went to that point where we might get the last lap board. So we'll keep an eye out for the checkered flag. I'll keep an eye out of my commentary box window. And but the last lap board has gone out, so this is the last lap of the race. So it will be this time by that Freddie Chidix will get the checkered flag. And given the fact that he's leading the championship, it's that consistency that he's had with the win at Knockhill, the 2 second places, 1 at Knockhill, 1 at Silverstone, the 3rd in the Kerber Sprint, and the only score to the drop so far is the 7th place at Mallory. But as he turns into the right-hander up through Clearways and Clark Kerr for the final time, they are ready in the checkered flag, and it will go for the 2nd time this year to Freddie Chidix, who will pick up the victory here at Brands Hatch in the Caterham Academy Green Group. It is victory for Freddie Chidix then, who wins by quite a margin over his main rival Jeff Newman. In fact, all 3 in the top 3 of the championship are in the top 2 positions. Newman was 2nd, Jones is 3rd. Newman sets the fastest lap of the race on the final lap. Ian Harris will get 4th, and the 5th place backwards after an incredible defensive drive. It's going to be a sprint for 6th to the line between Fraser and Kendall. Theato will get 5th for 6th position. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Kendall or Fraser? And it's Fraser who gets it. He holds on, but only just by 32 1/1000ths of a second. Brilliant stuff. And, oops, still car's going off towards whether it gets the flag. That was that Oliver Hardick, I think it was, at car number 3 that hasn't come through that passed the line just yet. I think it might have been. Yeah, Oliver Hardick, who came across the line in car number 3, so almost put it into the gravel in the last lap. That would have been embarrassing. But excellent stuff from our Caterham Academy. Brilliant job, and there is a very happy 2nd win of the winner for the 2nd time this year, Freddie Chidix. He certainly deserves that after a commanding drive, letting everyone else scrap behind him, and he pulled away quite substantially to pick up the win in fine fashion here at Brands Hatch. So confirmation of the provisional result. Freddie Chidix wins by 8.7 seconds from Jeff Newman, who steals the fastest lap of the race on the final lap. Mark Jones is 3rd from Ian Harris 4th. A brilliant drive for Theato sees his best result in 5th from Fraser, Kendall, Cook, Domain and Castle, rounding out the top 10. 11th place for Philip Clark, ahead of Mark Williams 12th. Paul Woodman, what could have been? He missed out on a top 10 or even a top 5. He has to settle for 13th place. He'd be disappointed with that. From Rob Payne, John Hood, Joe Priday, Oliver Hardick, Richard Percy, Ian Bettis and John Vincent rounding out the top 20. And Isla Lowe was the final finisher. So all 21 cars started, all 21 made it home. Well done for all the Caterham Academy drivers on getting it there. So for those watching on the Caterham stream, we're going to our 2nd break. So we'll be seeing you guys very shortly as our next next race gets underway. But to get that underway on the Brscc stream, keep watching, because we're going to hand over back down to Jake for the first of our 2 mixed class saloon car series, which is the Classic and Modern Motorsport Club's Super Saloons and Tin Tops.